Hey folks, this is Paul, talking about A Course in Miracles again. Do you feel ashamed? Do you feel unworthy? Are you not good enough? Are you afraid of failure? Do you not measure up? Do you not deserve love? A Course in Miracles may talk about these things loosely in some various ways, but if you do a search for the term shame, it doesn't provide many hits, and there's only one sentence that kind of touches on this, and it says something like the sense of shame that comes from inadequacy produces a fear of failure. And I've been looking into this deeply because I've been having all kinds of this stuff coming up for healing lately, and just had a big catharsis last night. Feeling of shame and unworthiness and fear of failure, and it's quite a serious thing, and I think a lot of people feel this, and possibly we could say everybody has some of this, but it's not really discussed much, so I wanted to talk about it. So I had to look up definitions for shame, and how is shame different from guilt? Because the Course talks a lot about guilt, and it defines it, and it talks about how it happens, and how sin induces guilt, and guilt demands punishment, and so on. But generally speaking, in psychology terms, it seems as though guilt is more to do with you sort of acknowledge that you did something wrong, you acknowledge that you've hurt somebody, but you feel sort of a sense of remorse, like you kind of recognize that you shouldn't have done it, and you sort of feel sorry for the person or whatever, and so you feel guilty, and you sort of, it almost motivates you to want to do something to apologize or whatever. It can, it's usually something that you've done to someone else. So like in the Course in Miracles, it says that if you attack someone, any form of attack will induce guilt, because ultimately the person is innocent child of God. If you attack innocence, or you try to attack God even, it's going to produce a feeling of what we call guilt, because that's sort of like saying, I've done something bad and harmful towards something that's pure and innocent, and so you should feel guilty if you do that. But shame is a little different, because it doesn't necessarily have to entail that you've done something to somebody else. It could, but it could also be related to if you're concerned about your body. It could be that you're too large or too small or too tall or too short, or the wrong color or the wrong accent or the wrong behavior or the wrong kind of intelligence or whatever it is. And essentially it's kind of like, if there's some way that you don't measure up, some way that you don't meet this ideal, some way that you fall short, you're lacking, you're limited, you're not as good as somebody else, you got a lower score, you have less value, you've been in some way degraded, some way diminished, somehow you're below where something else is, like some kind of ideal, some kind of comparison that you make, some kind of perfect body, some kind of perfect type of lifestyle, some version of success or whatever it is. You compare yourself to it, and then you say, well, I'm not doing that, I don't measure up, I'm not as good as that, I don't have that much value, I'm not as able and as capable. So that sort of tells you that you are less than, you are somehow lacking, there's something about you that is less than perfect. So in any way that we've gone away from God and the separation from God, and it's induced bodies, and bodies are fundamentally limiting, very, very limiting, very lacking, very insufficient, incapable. You can't pick up a mountain with your body. There's all the kinds of things the body cannot do, even the good bodies, even the athletic bodies and the muscular bodies and the handsome, attractive bodies and the beautiful bodies. There's still shortcomings to all of the bodies. So the bodies were made to limit people. So if you then become body identified and you say, this is myself, and you take the body personally, any way in which the body is limited is a statement about you being less than perfect. You're less than unlimited. You're not able to do some things, so you're fundamentally lacking. So once you've got this contrast between what you could or should be able to do, what is the measure of a man, what is the ideal, what is supposed to be this sort of best of the best, if you don't measure up to that, and there's an inequality and a difference between you and that level, it induces feelings of shame and unworthiness and not good enough and not capable, and you feel like a failure, like somehow you sort of recognize, you look within yourself and say, well, I can't do that, and I'm not like this, and I don't have these things, and I don't measure up to that, so I'm already unable to do these things. And the recognition that you're incapable and you're lacking, you don't have the skills, you don't have the abilities or the looks or whatever, immediately defines you as a failure. And so now you are failing to be that, and you're failing to be able to do that, and you're failing to measure up to that. So that it instantly makes you a failure. So now you sort of believe about yourself that you are a failure, and you're not going to be capable, you're not going to be good enough, you're not going to be able to do things. So then that turns into, as well as shame and unworthiness, it turns into a sort of a justified fear of failure, because you sort of acknowledge, well, I know that I am not good enough to be able to do this, and I know that I'm lacking this, so if I was to try to do this and that, there's a good chance I'm not going to succeed, because I just don't have what it takes or whatever. And so that forms a basis for saying, if I attempt to do this thing, I'm probably going to fail at it. And so you've become afraid that you're going to fail because you believe you already are a failure. You sort of project the failure that you have labeled yourself as being onto this situation, and now you feel like, well, I probably shouldn't even try, shouldn't even bother to even make an effort to even go in this direction, because if I do, I'm going to fail. There's a very high chance and risk that I'm going to fail because I'm so insufficient, and that puts you off from wanting to even try to do it, because you sort of know, well, if I do this, based on the fact that I don't know how to do it, or I can't do it, I'm not able to do it, I'm not good enough to do it, there's a very good chance I'm going to just flop and it's going to be terrible. And if it is a big flop and it is terrible, it's going to prove my unworthiness. It's going to prove that I should be ashamed of myself. And it's going to give people an opportunity to judge you harshly and come down on you like a ton of bricks for laughing at you and embarrassing you and shaming you for your terrible failure. So you want to then avoid that, and then you want to avoid doing anything because you feel like anything you do is not going to be good enough, and everybody's going to judge it. Everybody's going to hate you for it. Everybody's going to point a finger and use it as an opportunity to scapegoat you and punish you. So the more that you get this sense of this, let's say you do stuff to somebody, you hurt someone, and you feel guilty about it, possibly, but the deeper, sometimes worse thing is that you can go into shame and unworthiness. So what I found is that the shame is kind of like the consequence of the guilt, and it's a way of enacting a punishment, and the shame is a way to imprison yourself. So it's kind of like saying, well, you did this, so you're guilty because you did this, you committed a sin, you've hurt someone or whatever, you broke something, whatever, so now you're guilty, and because you're guilty, because you did this, and we're agreeing that you did it, you don't deserve forgiveness, you're not worthy of being forgiven, you're not worthy of being loved, so that must mean you're unworthy, you're unforgivable, and for you to have done this, you must have been in some way faulty, in some way imperfect, in some way not innocent. There must have been something wrong with you, and so you are fundamentally flawed. You are, it's like a condemnation for your guilt, like saying, well, you're guilty, and the guilt demands that you be punished, and so it condemns you, and now the guilt is turning into shame and unworthiness and not being good enough, and a sense even deeper than remorse, a sort of a sense of being fundamentally, it's hard to put this into words, it's like there's something broken about you, that you're fundamentally evil, or you're there's something seriously wrong with you, like you're, it implies you are imperfect and you're defective in some way. You're brain damaged, or you're crazy, or you're have bad values or bad morals, or you don't care enough about people, you're too selfish or something. It just implies that you're fundamentally this less than perfect person, that you're some kind of subhuman kind of a thing, like you're devalued, and you're not as not as worthy of love and respect as other people, and you deserve to be stepped on, and you deserve to be disrespected and attacked and abused and punished. You deserve all this because of what you did. And this punishment, you can enact it upon yourself, and you put yourself into a sort of a withdrawn state of imprisonment, where you are sort of, you become this sort of subhuman kind of person, where you feel like you don't deserve normal love, you don't deserve relationships, you don't deserve to be happy, you don't deserve to get anything, you have no rights. You kind of become like some kind of caged animal, like you, talking from experience here, makes you feel like you're so diminished in your value that it's okay for other people to misuse you and abuse you, to step all over you. It's okay for them to scapegoat you or use what you did against you. It's okay for you to live in a box, live in a prison cell, and be kind of confined, cut off, no friends, feeling bad about yourself, and kind of wanting to die. So that shame that unworthiness, that sense of not being lovable. You don't even deserve anything. You should just be kind of dead. You don't deserve to live. Becomes a kind of a suicidal thing where you feel like you deserve to die. The simple logical progression goes from, well, you've sinned, therefore you're guilty because you did it. You acknowledge that you did it. If you're not forgiving and you hold it against yourself, now you're sort of saying, well, because you definitely did it, you don't deserve to be forgiven and have healing or to be loved again. So love and forgiveness are off the cards, off the table. You only deserve now to suffer and to be punished, and you should be, logically, you should be punished because you did do this. You deserve it, and you then start agreeing with it, agreeing that you sort of, yeah, I do deserve that, don't I did do that, I am guilty, I should be hurt and damaged by other people. It's okay for them to point fingers because I'm a shameful, disgusting human being. And I don't mean to keep laughing about it because this is part of my healing too, but you basically condemn yourself and you agree to the condemnation, and you start agreeing to punishment, and you start believing that you deserve to suffer, and then you start hurting yourself, and all of this leads to your own self-imposed belief that you shouldn't be allowed, you shouldn't be free, you shouldn't be permitted, you shouldn't even exist. You should be punished, and you should suffer badly, and you should die because of what you did. And you actually threaten yourself with this what is a suicidal belief that because you've done all this stuff and you're a guilty son of a bitch, and you should be ashamed and you don't deserve to live. You yourself, through your agreement that that's true of you, and your belief that that is actually the case, you support that, and you actually encourage it, and you try to make it happen. And you start finding ways to hurt yourself, and you start punishing yourself. You start doing things that are not in your best interests. You start, your life goes off the rails. Maybe you start going into substance abuse or alcohol or sex addiction or whatever, and relationships where you are not an equal, relationships where the other person is taking from you all the time, or using you as a doormat, or is fighting with you constantly and doesn't really love you, but you think that's fine because you don't think you deserve to have proper love anyway. You don't deserve it, so that you attract relationships and people to come along and be the kinds of people that you think you deserve. And these will be people that are abusive, people that are selfish, people that want to use you, want to take from you. And then you'll think, well, you only deserve to give them what they want, and if they want something from you, then you're giving it to them is the only way that you'll get little scraps of attention and tiny bits of love, because that's all you think you deserve. You don't even think you deserve to get any proper attention or affection or love because of what you've done. And so then you'll seek out, say, I don't deserve the good quality relationships, I don't deserve the loving, reciprocal, holy relationships, I only deserve to be treated like a piece of shit, to be walked all over and violated and hurt and constantly under stress and emotionally abused and whatever. And so you'll think that's the only kinds of relationships that I deserve to have, are these derogatory, degrading, dehumanizing, disempowering relationships where I feel that I'm getting my just desserts, and I'm being treated the way I should be treated because I think I should be punished and suffer and die. So all this produces this freaking death wish, this belief that you don't deserve to live because of how ashamed you are of yourself, how unworthy you are, how much you don't deserve to be loved by God, you don't deserve to be forgiven, you don't deserve to be treated well and respected or have healthy boundaries, you don't deserve to get things that you can enjoy, you don't deserve to have a life. It's a way of taking life away from you, and it's an attempt to destroy yourself. It can become pretty serious, and people kill themselves over this. People destroy themselves to the point of death through the belief that they've done something that's so shameful, that they're so unworthy of love, they've never been shown proper love, they believe that they don't deserve it, there's something wrong with them, they're fundamentally flawed and unworthy and not good enough and lacking, and they've never been properly shown or taught that they're inherently worthy of God's infinite perfect love forever. And so low self-esteem, low self-respect, self-loathing, self-unlove, self-attack, self-abuse all comes out of this, and it can lead to hurting yourself and others, and it can lead to suicide. It's the desire, it's the belief that you don't deserve to live because you've committed some kind of mortal sin. It destroys your life. This stuff can all be pretty buried, and you can be in denial of it, and in a way unconscious of it because you think it's normal or it's natural, and you may not even question it because you've accepted that this is what you deserve. And to go up against the whole weight of it, you're going to have to bring into question whether you really are guilty, whether you really should suffer. You're going to have to question whether you should be ashamed. You're going to have to question your own self-judgment as to how you are insufficient and unworthy and inadequate. Your sense of being flawed and fundamentally something bad about you, like you're some kind of evil monster, it's going to have to be questioned. You're going to have to question the right of anyone to judge you and condemn you and find you guilty, because they don't have that right, as well as your own self-condemnation and your unforgiveness of yourself. All of this is going to have to be questioned in order for you to have any sense that you deserve to live. So that shame has to go, because it is destroying your whole existence. It's like a death sentence. It's like a ball and chain around your leg that says, well, you're already a failure, you're already so lacking and so poor that you have nothing, you might as well just die. But the shame comes from this self-inflicted imprisonment, an agreement that you make that says you deserve to be ashamed, you should be ashamed based on what you did, which is unforgiveness of yourself. So you've got to forgive yourself and recognize you didn't do this thing, and go through all the steps of healing it and releasing it. And this feeling of not being good enough, not being worthy enough, that you are a failure, will cause you to not live. It will hold you back, because it's going to induce a fear that because of your inadequacy and because you're already so broken and not capable, anything you try to do is likely to fail and it's going to fuck up. Or everything you do, you're going to sabotage it because you don't believe you deserve to have success. or you won't even want to try to do things because you're certain that not only are you already a failure, and when you try and do it you're going to fail at it, but when you fail at it it's going to trigger off the memory that you are a shameful, guilty person and remind you of how unworthy you are, and it's going to expose you and present to the public the possibility of a witch hunt and being a target for people's scapegoating and their selfishness and their unforgiveness that nobody is justified in. So then you're afraid that, well, if you express yourself, if you come out of your box, if you let yourself be free, if you give yourself permission to live, if you find yourself not to be shameful and unworthy, if you get rid of the guilt and you do something that is visible, where you're not living in a withdrawn, hiding state, everybody else is going to see your shame and guilt, and they're going to point a finger, and you stand accused. So then it's like everywhere you, if you've got shame and guilt in you, everywhere you go you feel like a target. Everywhere you go you feel like you are a walking signpost that says, hey everybody, I've got a secret sin and a hidden hate and you should attack me. and then pretending to hide from people as you walk around as if you're trying to hide the sin under the belief of this self-consciousness that everybody's looking at you, everybody knows what you did, everybody's going to find out, and living in constant fear that people are going to just find out what you did wrong, and they're going to be unforgiving and they're going to be brutal and punishing and they want to take it out on you so they can get rid of their own guilt. So this secret sin, hidden hates, you want to keep it hidden and you want to keep it in the dark. You don't want to come out and expose yourself. You don't want to be visible. You'll hide away from society and avoid everyone and interactions, and you'll start avoiding people because you're quite certain that exposing yourself is practically like standing up and saying, look at me, I sinned, come over now and take it out on me please. and it's threatening, and it's because you've threatened yourself. It causes you to withdraw from society, it causes you to withdraw from relationships and be separated off and be alone and isolated and lonely, because you feel shit about yourself and you feel this unworthiness. I'm not good enough, I don't measure up, people are going to judge me, people are going to find me to be lacking. Everywhere I go people point out my flaws, they call me fat and they call me thin, they call me too skinny, they call me too ugly, whatever. And it's not that they do this, that's the problem, it's that you believe it. And so when they do it, it triggers your belief that you agree with it, and you're upset because it's true to you, even though it's upsetting. It's like you can't be upset about something if you really know that it's not true. You'll just laugh about it because it's so ridiculous. But when you don't know that it's not true, and someone's accusing you of something that you've accused yourself of, even if it hurts and even if you blame them for putting it there, which they didn't, it makes it feel like it's their fault, and you don't want to feel that way, but you kind of do because you actually believe it. So you can only be upset by things that you believe are true. So what you're afraid of then isn't so much what other people are going to do. Are they going to judge me? Are they going to hate me? Are they going to find me shameful? Are they going to point a finger? Are they going to do this and that? What you're actually afraid of is that they're going to tap into what's already in you that you believe in, and they're going to trigger it off, and you're going to be reminded of how shameful you already believe you are, and it's just going to compound it, and so you're afraid of it sort of being proven again or recognized again that something's wrong with you. So you try to hide it from yourself, and you try to hide it from the world, and that separates you off from the world. This is a belief in separation. So with that shame, it's like living in a prison. It's like being isolated. It makes you, the unworthiness makes you not want to be in relationships. It makes you avoid love. It makes you avoid happiness and exposure and openness and willingness, and makes you kind of dead already. I've found many times that there are things that I wanted to do, but I would not do them, and as soon as I would get close to doing them, I would want to run the other way. I would want to find anything else possible that I could do other than doing this thing, because I knew that I was going to fail at it. I knew that whatever I did, even if I did my best, it was going to be judged harshly. I knew that it wasn't going to be good enough because I'm not good enough, and that I already was experiencing the shame and the guilt and the unworthiness even before I even attempted to do this thing. So I was certain that even if I did this, I wasn't going to change that. I was still going to feel that way. And it was going to create an opportunity for people to trigger that off and just remind myself of how much I think I'm ashamed. So this shame is a further step down the road from the guilt. Sometimes you can feel guilty but not particularly think, well, it means that I'm a terrible person. You can feel guilty without necessarily sort of saying there's something fundamentally wrong with me and I don't deserve love. Because in the guilt there's at least some recognition that it's just a thing you did. It's kind of a bit more specific. I did this, therefore I did it, so I'm guilty. I did that, so I'm guilty, but maybe I can recognize that it's hurt the person, so I feel sorry for them and I apologize and blah blah blah. The guilt sort of tells you you probably shouldn't have done that, but it's potentially forgivable. But once you don't forgive the guilt, it goes into this terrible punishment mode of this shame and this diminishing, this self-attack, abuse, punishment, unworthiness, isolation, moving towards death, moving towards self-destruction and suicide. So it's very important then to look at within yourself, where am I feeling like I'm inadequate? Why am I feeling inadequate? What is the comparison that I'm making? Is it even worth being compared to this thing? Am I inadequate because I'm not enough of a man, a man body? Am I inadequate because I don't have enough money? Are these even things worth being compared to if they're illusory things in the world and they don't really have any value? Am I inadequate because I'm too ugly and other people are better looking? And you can find all kinds of examples of people that have better hair, better eyes, better body shapes or whatever. And just by comparing, you will be inadequate. There's a never-ending supply of stuff in the world to compare yourself with and to come up short. Just having a body is an inadequacy, because it stops you from being unlimited. It stops you from being able to create worlds and move mountains with your mind and stuff. It's like, it's a great big handicap. So if you're gonna make the world real, and you're gonna value the things in the world yourself, and say this over here is what is very important and valuable, and then you compare yourself to this value that you've made up yourself, and saying, well, based on the thing that I think I should be, I'm not that, so I'm not worthy enough, I'm not good enough. Now you've self-inflicted shame on yourself based on making up a value, making up a standard that you can't even reach, and now judging yourself harshly for it and finding yourself to be shameful because you're not good enough at this thing. So what I've been doing lately, I've been having to dig out all this shame and all this feeling of not good enough and inadequate and lacking, and where is it coming from and what's it based on? Is it something I did? Is it just something I am? Is it a measurement that society has put in place, and I'm not enough of this and enough of that? Any kind of inequality is going to induce shame. If you're somehow less than anything, it's basically saying you're less than good enough, you're less than perfect enough, you don't deserve enough. You've been judged and found wanting. So there's something about you that should not receive love. There's a lack of validity. And this all has to be healed and removed, because it causes you to hide. It causes you to be afraid of failing all the time. It makes you feel like you don't deserve to be loved. It's a belief that God doesn't love you. It's a way of finding yourself to be less than innocent and therefore less than lovable. It can go pretty deep. There's a lot of shit in there, and I know we work on quite often the guilt. You might work on fear, but I found that shame and that shameful unworthiness, inadequacy, that feeling of something's wrong with you, can be very deep, because shame usually applies to your whole self, and it's sort of like saying my entire self is lacking, my whole self is something wrong with all of me. I'm fundamentally defective and less than, and not as perfect as someone else. Like you're sort of like the junk that came off the conveyor belt, or you're the runt of the litter, or the black sheep, or the garbage that's been disposed of that nobody wants. The truth is then that God loves you permanently, fully, unconditionally, finds you to be perfect. He created you perfect, so you cannot be lacking. He created you absolutely, exquisitely, immaculately, divinely perfect, flawless, complete in every way, an absolute picture of perfection that couldn't be improved upon even slightly. So perfect, no flaws, nothing wrong with you, no weird inabilities, no disabilities, no lack, no incapability, no limitation, just absolutely unlimited in your perfection. So that's the truth about you, and that's what you've got to latch onto and remind yourself of, and use that as your guiding post as to whether it's true or not that you should be ashamed and guilty. God finds you to be perfect, so is it possible or true that you really should be ashamed? God created you absolutely divinely perfect, accurate, excellent, and amazing, can it be possible that in truth you are defective, unworthy, undeserving, just not good enough, just a piece of shit that just nobody wants? And being wanted is a part of this, just if you've got stuff to do with abandonment, rejection, parents that aren't loving enough, spouses and children and relationships that aren't loving enough, producing a sense of, well, must be something wrong with me then. They must be right. They know what they're talking about. If they say I'm a piece of shit, maybe I'm a piece of shit. And if they don't love me because they're too selfish and they can't love themselves, maybe they don't love me because I'm just not lovable. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe it's my fault and I'm flawed. If they're punishing me, hurting me, abusing me, attacking me, hitting me, sexual abuse, whatever it is, physical abuse, emotional abuse, it must be that I deserve it. And why else would they be doing it? Because surely they're in their right mind. Surely they know what they're doing, and the force with which they have pushed it upon me with such certainty must surely define who and what I am, and therefore I must surely be defective and I must have deserved it. We form these kind of beliefs, especially in childhood. We don't know any better, where we just kind of assume that whatever someone says is true. The world defines you, the world causes you, the world affects you, the world gets to have a say in what you are. You are at the effect of the world, and every time that you perceive and believe that you are at the effect of something outside of you, you're saying, I allow you to define what I am. You are the cause of me. You get to create me how you want me to be. Whatever you say is true of me is what I am. And you take that on as a definition of yourself, and you form this self-image based on the world's judgment of what you are, and their attempt to define you and distinguish you and say, this is what you're like. You're no good. You're never going to amount to anything. You're not good enough. You don't deserve to have a boyfriend. Whatever thing comes up from anyone can, if you allow it to, if you believe in it and you agree with it, you will take it on as a definition of yourself. And now you're sort of forming this self-image of, oh, I'm a piece of shit. I don't deserve love. I'm never going to be good enough. My parents don't love me enough, so I'm never going to be good enough for them. They don't love themselves because they're selfish assholes, so there's no way that I'm ever going to be found to be good enough because I'm depending on them to tell me that I'm good enough. So if they don't ever decide to be fully unconditionally loving, there's no way that I'm ever going to be worthy of love. So you got to break out of this dependency on external things to tell you whether you're good enough or not, or to define, are you worthy, are you shameful, are you guilty? The world can fuck off with that definition of you, but it's not really the world doing it, it's you using the world and agreeing with the world in its seeming evaluation of you and saying, what I believe the world believes about me is true of me. And so then you are using the world through your consent to punish yourself and to say, I am going to just go along with being a piece of carpeting. I'm going to let this person walk all over me. I'm going to have this person punish me. I'm going to let this person abuse me. I'm going to stay in this relationship with this selfish person that doesn't love me because I want to continue being a victim and I want to stay suffering and I don't deserve it. I don't believe I should be loved, so I'm just going to let myself be stepped all over and treated like a piece of shit, like subhuman, like some kind of corrupt animal that doesn't even deserve to be given any time or attention. Ultimately, we do it to ourselves through our agreement and through our beliefs and through our consent, which means that you can choose not to. So it's up to you to be responsible for accepting God's authorship of your being. The world has no say in what you are. You have no say in what you are. Only God is the author of your being. He is the creator of you. You weren't even around when he was considering how to design you and what you were going to be like. He put you there the way that he wanted you to be, in perfection, complete and whole and holy and innocent and perfect and incapable of sin, with eternal life, immortality, love and happiness. You cannot change it, nor can the world, but you can believe that it's not true of you when you decide, I'm going to believe that I don't deserve love. I'm going to believe that I should be ashamed of myself. I'm going to hold myself back because I am constantly fucking living in shame and seeming to let the world walk all over me and push me back. This is all to do with you giving your power away. It's to do with you saying, well, I'm going to let you have the power and the responsibility to define for me whether I should live and whether I should be happy and what I'm allowed to do and where I can go and how free I am and whether I can just be myself without having to fucking get your permission. It's to do with setting yourself free, coming out of hiding. If you believe that you have secret sins and hidden hates and things you haven't forgiven, there's something wrong with you. Something sinful about you. Something is bad about you. You're a bit evil. You're a bit twisted and selfish. You got some ego. Whatever it is, you will not expose yourself and be visible and open and trusting because you want to hide these things in the darkness in order to keep them, because you know that if you were to expose them to the truth, that you would not believe them and you would not want to keep them. So you deliberately keep them in the dark, hiding in a closet. So if you don't want to come out of the closet, so to speak, not just sexually but spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, you're not going to want to show that you have nothing to hide until you have nothing to hide. So, if you have something to hide, any kind of imperfection, any kind of sense of I'm not good enough, you will hide it. And it's actually put there through hiding. It's the belief that darkness can hide. If you've got a lack of light, it hides from the light. You keep it hidden. You keep it even in denial about it. You keep it out of your awareness. You tuck it in the back of your memory and you pretend that it's not there and you try to act like there's nothing wrong with you even though you secretly hate yourself. When you have nothing to hide because you're not hiding the truth from yourself, and the truth is that you're not sinful and you're not shameful and you're not guilty, and it only seems like these things remain true so long as you're keeping them in the dark, so long as you're not looking at them, so long as you're avoiding them and just trying to pretend that they're not there. That maintains them. So you actually have to bring them into the light and take a look with the real truth, compare them to what God says about you, and you will find in the light of truth, in that true perspective, that these things are not true. They can't be true. There's no way you can be shameful because God created you perfect. There's no way you can be unworthy of God's love, because He Himself is saying, I want to love you 100% right now, and you're just not letting me. There's no way that you can be defective and deficient and lacking like some kind of ugly creature that everybody hates and wants dead, and nobody can even give the time of day because you don't even deserve to be winked at. It can't be true, because you are the glory of heaven. You are a freaking shining star in the highest of heaven that is absolutely stunning and beautiful and for everyone to see. Fully exposed, nothing hidden, no flaws, no blemishes, nothing. And you got to be careful that when you're comparing yourself to that, you don't silly say, well, I'm supposed to be holy and perfect, I'm supposed to be divine and flawless and have no problems and nothing hidden, but I do, therefore I'm guilty. The ego can jump in there at any opportunity and say, well, making a comparison here, let's just see if you measure up. If you don't measure up, you are simply fucked. So being loved is your right. Being respected is your right. Being honored and recognized is your right. Being trusted is your right. Being acknowledged and respected for your truth and your wisdom is your right. Inheriting the kingdom of God is your right. God finds you worthy. God thinks you're fucking amazing and absolutely flawless and perfect, and He couldn't even do anything different to make you any more perfect. So it's always about kind of a self-inflicted punishment that I feel ashamed about myself. I feel unworthy. I don't think I deserve love. That I believe I should be punished. I don't think people should love me. Because it's definitely nothing to do with God. God is there fucking loving you 100% unconditionally and beyond all the time, ceaselessly. He doesn't have a problem loving you. He doesn't have a problem finding you worthy. He's offering maximum acceptance, total love, total welcome. And here you are as the prodigal son saying, well, I know I'm kind of ashamed of myself because I threw that away and I don't deserve it. God shouldn't love me. God shouldn't be finding me worthy. God shouldn't be happy with me. God should be punishing me. God should be trying to enact revenge on me. God should want me dead. This is what the ego believes. It's the belief, oh, well, I've sinned, so God is justified in revenge. I've attacked God, therefore God should want me to be dead. And then you believe that you should be dead, and God even agrees with you. And you think you don't deserve to live, and even God knows it. Everyone knows it. I'm just a worthless piece of shit. That's what the ego thinks. It's arrogant in that it's deciding for God what God thinks of you. You're sort of saying, well, I think that God is wrong to love me. I think God must be mistaken if He finds me worthy. I don't believe you, God. I don't trust you. I don't think that you're going to find me to be good enough. I think you're stupid. You must be insane to believe that I deserve to be loved. And to save you from your stupidness, you just go ahead and keep pretending to love me, and I'm gonna just I know what's true. I know what the truth is, and I'm gonna save you the bother. Save you the bother of wasting your time loving me, wanting me. I'm just gonna, save your effort. I'm just gonna go over here and crawl in a hole and kill myself. That's what we're doing. We think we know better. We're convinced of our own self-inflicted judgment, condemnation. We're the ones that have given ourselves a death sentence. We're the ones that have decided we should be ashamed of ourselves. We're the ones that are not forgiving ourselves. We're the ones that are rejecting God and rejecting love for no good reason. If God does love you, there is no basis for any belief that God doesn't love you. If it's true that you're perfect, it's completely unfounded of you to believe that you're not perfect. If God finds you worthy and welcomes you and wants you, it's practically a blasphemy to suggest that God doesn't love you and doesn't want you. It is a lie. So all guilt is a lie, all sin is a lie, all shame is a lie, all unworthiness is a lie, self-destruction is a lie, believing that you don't deserve to live is a lie. It's all based on a rejection of the freaking factual truth that you already have eternal life and you can't die, and God has already guaranteed you're going to live forever. It's not even possible for you to change that fact. And so asserting death, asserting unworthiness, asserting sin and guilt and shame is fiction. It's trying to claim something is true that isn't true. All shame is unfounded. You should not feel ashamed about anything. All guilt is completely uncalled for because there's no such thing as real sin. You cannot attack reality. You can't hurt God. You can never sin against anything real. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing real can be affected. So how exactly is it that you have allegedly performed a sin against something real? It is impossible, and you haven't done it. So whatever this is, not only is it a belief in a made-up, impossible crime, it's also a belief that you've actually really done something bad to something real. It's had real consequences. You really should be guilty. In reality, you really are ashamed of yourself and you are unworthy of forgiveness and love, and you should die. And all of that is bullshit. Absolute bull fucking crap. Horse manure bullshit. It is the biggest lie in the universe. So there's no truth in your belief that you don't deserve love. There is no truth whatsoever in your belief that you should be ashamed. There's no truth to any justification for saying that you should feel guilty. There is absolutely no basis for any claim that you're unworthy of love, that you're defective, lacking, not good enough, don't deserve, should be judged, you're some kind of criminal, some kind of monster, that you're evil. This is all bullshit. All of it is ego bullshit. It's a lie, a massive lie. And all you need to do is decide to recognize it for what it is and agree that it is actually a lie and not a truth. Be unwilling to side with it, to use it against yourself, and to accept God's truth about you and say, okay, I accept this atonement. I accept the forgiveness of myself. I have not done what I thought I did. I'm not the guilty motherfucker. I didn't sin. I did not cause this person to be hurt. I have not committed this crime. I did not break this thing. I didn't do that. Hasn't happened. This is just a stupid dream. This is a dream world. There are no real consequences. The world has no causal power. This is just a fiction. None of this is happening. You have never done anything wrong. So the whole basis for all of that terrible self-inflicted feeling of defectiveness and like you're some kind of inferior, devalued, undeserving, unworthy creature, it's completely unfounded. Absolutely unfounded. There's not a single shred of truth to it. But you have to be willing to look at that and to see it and accept it. You have to be willing to allow yourself to own it in the face of everyone else telling you that you're a piece of shit. You have to be willing to completely reject the judgments and ignore the condemnations of other people, even if they seem justified. You have to be willing to forgive yourself, even if other people don't forgive you. You cannot find forgiveness by waiting for someone else who you think has the responsibility of finding you to be innocent or not to decide in their own good time that, oh, now you're innocent. Okay. Thanks for waiting 50 years. You cannot wait for someone, no matter the situation or the reason or what you did. You cannot wait for other people to say that you are forgiven, to say that you are worthy, to say that you deserve love, to say that you're a good enough person, to give yourself the relief, to say that you shouldn't be guilty anymore, and to say that you now deserve to be loved and respected and have a normal, happy life. Quite often, people that are victims, people that are hurt, people that you do things to, people that you offend, people that you even have attacked, love to use the situation as a scapegoating situation to get rid of their guilt. That they almost love the fact that you attack them, because it gives them a wonderful justification for being able to say, oh great, now I have some real fuel, now I can seize this opportunity. Here's a person that has gone out of their way to position themselves as a guilty motherfucker. I can take advantage of them, and now I can get some of my belief in sin and guilt, and I can dump it on them, punish them for what they did, punish them for what I did, find them guilty, attack them, and be justified. And this is a big cover-up now, and now it looks like it's all justified and it's normal and it's supposed to be happening, when secretly the person is freaking taking advantage of the situation and milking it for all it's worth and trying to use it to get rid of as much of their own guilt as they can. And now it's just bullshit. So you don't need to be permitting and allowing other people to condemn you to hell. They don't have that right, and they don't have the right to tell you that you're not forgiven, and they don't have the right to decide whether you should have a life or be happy or be loved or have a relationship or be respected. No one has the right to fuck up your life against your will. So you have to be willing to accept the truth that God has created. Otherwise, you're just going to allow that shit to happen and use it to hurt yourself. When you set yourself free from deciding that you are inadequate in whatever way, and you set yourself free from finding yourself to be a sinful fucker, and you set yourself free from shame and all of the feelings and the judgments of being this weakened, defective, less than human person who deserves nothing, and you get rid of this bullshit, and you set yourself free of that, and you set yourself free of the lie of being unworthy, you are empowering yourself and giving yourself permission to be innocent. This is part of forgiveness. This is you deciding that it's not true that you are guilty. It's not true that you should be ashamed. It's not true that you should suffer and be punished and die. You deserve to live. By finding yourself deserving of life, you will stop trying to destroy yourself, stop being suicidal, and cause resurrection, which will heal you and your body and others, and you will become visible, and you will stand up and say, this is who I am. If you don't like it, you can fuck off. This is me. I am lovable. I am worthy. I am holy and innocent. There's nothing wrong with me. I don't need your approval. I don't need your fucking judgments. I don't need your anything. I am inherently, fundamentally perfect because God has created me perfect, and you have no say in it. You do not define me. You don't change me. You don't cause me. You do not hurt me. You don't damage me. You don't make me broken. You don't do anything to alter my fundamental, inherent divinity. Here I am. And you will come out of hiding, come out of the darkness into the light, into freedom, into giving yourself permission, into feeling that you're allowed, that you don't need approval, that you're a free spirit. You can be yourself. You know yourself. Be true to yourself. You support yourself, respect yourself, and love yourself. And that you're willing to receive love from God. Because this is the end of the prodigal son journey, leading up to the reunion with God. The openness and the willingness to say, well, I don't believe there's any reason why I shouldn't be loved. I don't believe there's any reason to withhold God's love. God has no grounds for not loving me. I haven't sinned, so I don't really have a reason to object. There's nothing else that I believe is true of me that would kind of nag in the back of my mind and saying, well, I'm not quite sure if I should be loved because what about this? Once you let go of all that baggage and all that untruth, it becomes clearer and obvious, and you're much more squarely willing. All that's left is God's truth being true, and nothing else is true. And it becomes the only choice. It becomes the obvious. Since all this other stuff isn't true, this must be the truth. God's truth must be true because nothing else is true. And that seems so obvious. It's like, oh, okay, I accept that. You effortlessly accept it. And in that acceptance, you are accepting atonement. You're now willing to recognize that God has always loved you. God still loves you. He still finds you completely innocent and worthy. Has never even stopped. He's like practically laughing that you would even consider for a second that he would somehow get angry at you or not like you anymore. That he would ever blame you or be mad at you. It's ridiculous. God still loves you 100%, just as all the same forever. You then feel tremendous relief and emotion at the sheer weight that's been lifted off your shoulders to suddenly realize everything that you thought was gone to shit hasn't. Everything that got fucked up doesn't even matter. All the stuff all the reasons why you thought you didn't deserve love, they're not true. All the self-abuse and darkness and shame and guilt was unfounded and was never true of you. You only ever did deserve God's love because you're permanently innocent. You're not capable of real sin. God did not give you the ability to sin. You can't do it, and you haven't done it. So you must have just been very mistaken for a while, and now you're like, okay, that was a bit silly, wasn't it? I was just not in my right mind. I forgot the truth, and now I'm accepting. Okay, God, go ahead, love me. Okay. And then you will let yourself be rejoined with God in reunion and receive. Give yourself permission to receive finally and get plugged back into God's love, to let it happen. Let yourself be loved by God. Receive God's love. It's very healing. You can just sit there and say, I receive God's love, and let it soak in. Let God come into you. Let yourself feel his closeness. Let him get into your body. Just sunbathe in the love. Absorb the love. You don't have to do anything. Just be loved. That is receiving the miracle. And now that you've received that love and you know that you deserve it, you're convinced that love is always deserved because God is always loving, and the grounds and the basis for not being worthy are bullshit. You now know that this applies to everyone. Everyone deserves to be loved because God does love everyone and no one has sinned. Everyone is mistaken in believing that they're shameful and guilty, just as you were. Nobody has sinned and nobody deserves punishment because you didn't. And so now you're willing to extend and share this miracle of love that you've received and allowed for yourself. You give it to other people. And now those who are healed become instruments of healing. You now, having accepted your place in the atonement and acknowledged that you have everything, you now become part of the atonement yourself. It is the privilege of the forgiven to forgive. Now you can bestow blessings and healing upon other people. You can be the light of the world. You can be a miracle worker because you've plugged yourself back into the source of miracles, and now you can extend and express them. You can express love because you love yourself. You can express love because you accept that God loves you, and therefore you can receive love and have love come through you to others, to express that to others. Miracles are the acceptance of the inner recognition of the something of Christ, whatever, and now it comes out of you because you've gone back up to the atonement and plugged yourself back into the love that you deserve, and so now you can funnel it to other people and work miracles. So to be a miracle worker, the shame has to go, the guilt has to go, the I'm not worthy, pity, sorry party has to go, the I'm a victim has to go, the I don't deserve to be it has to go. If you want to work miracles and heal people, you have to find them worthy of it. So you have to believe you are worthy. You're not going to want to give love to people if you think you don't deserve to receive it. You don't think that you deserve love, you will hold it back and not let yourself love other people enough, because it would have to mean that you love yourself more than you do. Love is the active ingredient of all miracle working. So to be a miracle worker, all of this guilt and shame, unworthiness, self-condemnation, self-loathing, hatred, judging yourself, feeling bad about yourself, putting yourself down, not giving yourself credit or respect, treating yourself poorly, allowing yourself to be shitted on, has to go, so that you can be a beacon of love. It's the only way. You become resurrected, and then you are capable of raising the dead. I think I might wind up there. Still working on this myself. Still have some shame stuff. Still have some unworthiness stuff. Still have some fear of failure. Still have some guilt. Still have some not good enoughs. They have to be purged, and they're coming on out. So, work in progress. But there we go. Hope this is helpful. Hopefully it's guiding you towards believing in yourself more, or whatever. God loves you, love to you, and see you next time, I guess. Bye-bye.